I stare out the window of the fast food restaurant, watching the combination of rain and snow drizzle down the glass as it reflects the neon signs from the building across the street. I'm a bit surprised that those signs are still on. It's approaching midnight, and I saw the last of the employees leave the business hours ago. I wonder if the signs are always left on, or if someone was in so much of a hurry to get the hell out of work that they forgot to turn them off. Speaking of employees, I glance over at the counter and see that the cashier is staring at me again. It's almost closing time, and she's anxious to start getting things closed down for the night. I'm tempted to stay seated at the table, but with a sigh, I stand up. There's no point in being annoying for the sake of being annoying. I refill my drink before putting up my hood and going out into the night. I don't even make it out of the parking lot before I have to stop. The sudden burning in my chest makes it difficult to breathe, and I have to clutch the side of a metal trash can to steady myself. It feels like an invisible hand made of fire squeezing my heart and lungs. I grit my teeth and wait for it to pass. Nothing else I can do. When the pressure finally releases, I gasp before taking a series of deep breaths. Something warm touches my hand. I don't have to look to know that it's blood that's dripped from my mouth. I let the rain wash it off before spitting more of it onto the concrete. Regaining my composure, I leave the parking lot and head in the general direction of my apartment. Although it's late and sleeting, I don't walk with any real sense of urgency. I'll get there when I get there. The process takes an hour. When I arrive at the rundown apartment building, I go inside and climb the stairs to the second floor. Each step brings with it a twinge of pain. I had originally answered an ad for an available first floor apartment, but by the time that I got there, it had already been rented out. The only other available one had been on the second floor. I hadn't had much of a choice, really. This is one of the few places in town that I could afford. All of the other choices were currently full. I lean up against the wall as I reach the second floor, taking a moment to rest. As I do so, I feel a bit of the old rage welling up inside of me. I hate being this feeble. There's never been a time in my life that I've been so fucking fragile. I disgust myself. The anger quickly fades, and the numbness returns. I shouldn't be alive. The severity of the injuries I had suffered in Broken Bend nearly 10 months ago should have been fatal. There was no doctor in the world that should have been capable of piecing me back together, even with the sacrifice the wolf had made in an effort to protect me. I hadn't been tended to by any normal doctors, however. Pembroke had seen to that. He transported my nearly lifeless body to an offshore cruise ship called the Atlantean Tribute. There, they had somehow managed to piece me back together. I wince as a sudden stabbing pain makes my left shoulder spasm. They hadn't gotten the puzzle put all the way back. A few of the pieces had been missing. Managing to finally catch my breath, I half walk, half stumble towards my apartment door. I pull my keys from my pocket and insert it into the lock. As I'm about to turn it, I hesitate and look back over my shoulder. I'd swear that I just heard something. I'm not sure exactly what that something was, though. As I listen intently, I don't hear anything further. I'm being paranoid. Again. Yet another wonderful side effect of my weakened state and, if I'm being honest with myself, the beating that I took in Broken Bend. I never would have thought that it'd be possible. I'm fairly sure that I'm dealing with an extra large helping of PTSD. I go into my apartment and quickly close and lock the door behind me. Just because I recognize that I'm being paranoid doesn't mean that I can fight against that feeling. I cross over to the kitchen area. This isn't much of an apartment, just a small living room, bedroom, and a bathroom that is barely bigger than a closet. It suits my needs, though. I don't require much, though, just privacy and a place to sleep. I open the refrigerator and take out a container of orange juice. It's time to take my nightly medications, and I need something to wash them down with. The building's water tastes awful, so orange juice it is. With a container in hand, I go into the bathroom and turn on the light. It takes a moment for it to sputter on, and once it does, it's not very bright. I open the medicine cabinet and set the bottles that I'll need onto the side of the sink. There are 7 in total. This is actually an improvement, as originally I needed to take 9 each night. One by one, I make my way through the line of bottles, carefully making sure to use only the prescribed dose for each. I don't know what most of them do. All that I know is that I was specifically told by the doctor that stitched me back together to take each of them for a certain amount of time. Who was I to argue with a presumably trained medical professional? When I'm eventually finished dosing myself, I go back out into the living room and sit down on the couch, staring at the television but not turning it on. I feel numb, and it's not just from the medication. All the days filled with pain and repetition are having an effect on me. I don't live my life so much as I simply exist. I think back to the pills in the bathroom. I could stop this seemingly endless cycle of emptiness easily enough. Just stand back up, collect all the bottles, and start swallowing all of the contents. I'd be lying if I said that it's not a tempting thought. I close my eyes. I can't bring myself to do it. Yet another example of my current weakness. My eyes open as I hear a board creak in the hallway outside of my apartment door. I turn my head towards it and listen. There are 2 more apartments on my floor, but both of them are on the other side of the building. There's no reason for someone to be near mine. I continue to listen for several minutes. There's only silence. Eventually I shake my head and sigh. It must have been the building settling. It's old, even by the standards of this part of town, and it's constantly producing odd sounds and even odder smells. Not the best environment for someone already suffering from paranoia. The wind and rain have picked up outside. The glass in the window on the far wall starts to rattle in its frame. I frown. Usually when the weather gets this bad, it's only a matter of time before... And there it is. Before I can even finish the thought, the power flickers before going out completely. An old building means old wiring. It's surprising that it ever works, really. It takes me a moment to realize that I'm hearing something. It's the sound of a television in the apartment below mine. The couple that lives there are hard of hearing. Because of this, their television is constantly turned to maximum volume. If I'm hearing it now, that means their power is still on. Pushing myself up from the couch, I limp over to the front door. Even the short amount of time that I've spent sitting has caused my muscles to tighten. I open the door and look into the hallway. The lights are still on. There hasn't been a power outage. There must be a blown fuse instead. There isn't a separate fuse box in each apartment. Instead, they're all located down in the building's basement. That's 2 flights of stairs down. I consider just waiting until morning to do anything about the power, but I reluctantly dismiss the idea. The temperature is already low outside, and it's expected to drop quite a bit more as the storm continues. My apartment will soon be freezing. There's also the risk of a pipe bursting if it gets too cold. As much as I want to, I can't ignore this. Shutting the apartment door behind me, I begin the painful task of going down the first flight of stairs. My medication has begun to kick in, and it's thankfully easier than it had been going up them when I had arrived at the apartment building. I grimace as I consider that I'm going to have to climb back up them when I'm finished with my task. I reach the first floor without incident and walk over to the door leading to the basement. It's partially open. I'm positive that it hadn't been when I had come into the building earlier in the evening. I must not be the only one that lost power. Opening the door all the way, I flip on the lights using a small switch on the wall to the right. The phosphorescent bulbs above the stairs come to life with a loud hum. The stairs themselves are ancient and narrow, and I move very slowly as I descend them into the basement. I reach the bottom and head to the breakers. I pass the washer and dryer that act as the building's laundry room as I do so. The dryer is running, making the same half-thump, half-screech that it always does. I wince as it hits a particularly painful note. The breaker boxes are labeled with numbers to indicate which apartment each is for, but they're so faded that I have a difficult time making out which is which. I manage to locate the one that corresponds to my apartment and press the button that releases the panel. It barely moves. I have to slide my fingers inside the gap to force it open. I furrow my brow, not immediately understanding what I'm seeing. The insides of the fuse box have been removed. All of the wires are exposed, and they're hanging in a tangled mess. They're cut in multiple places. I apologize for the mess, a voice says from the direction of the stairs. I didn't have time to tidy up. A cold chill runs through my body. I recognize that voice. I have to be wrong, though. It's impossible. Now, I realize that I'm a bit outside my jurisdiction, but I think we can both ignore that, don't you? After all, you didn't care much about such things when you came to my town. Heavy footsteps echo through the basement as the person begins to descend the stairs. Besides, we're old friends. No sense in being all formal about things. A pair of leather work boots appear, followed by jeans covered in dark stains that are still wet. It took me quite a while to find you. I didn't even know your name. Truth be told, I'm not sure if Stephen Tate is your real name, or simply the one that you're currently using. The man arrives at the bottom of the stairs. It really is him. Peter Garrett, sheriff of Broken Bend, Montana. He should be dead. He was dead. I tore him limb from limb before crushing his skull in. Surprised to see me up and walking around? Garrett asks me with a mocking look on his bearded face. I get that. What can I say? Praise be to Malcoleth. I feel a strange mix of anger and fear. The unholy entity that had burned away the wolf and left me in my current state was also the being that Garrett and the rest of the town had worshipped as a god. Some of them, Garrett included, had been rewarded for this devotion with powers of their own. Despite the ruined and very dead condition I had left him in, Malcoleth must have somehow put Garrett back together again. It's not that different from what the doctors on the Atlantean Tribute had done for me. There's probably something poetic about that, but poetry is the last thing on my mind. You don't have to speak, Garrett is saying. Actually, I'd rather that you don't. I don't give a shit about Stephen Tate. I'm here for the other guy. Fuzzy one. One that fucking humiliated me. Garrett's face is twisted into one of hatred. There's something in his eyes that I don't immediately recognize, a look that makes me more nervous than I already was. The one that ripped off my arm and leg, the one that put its filthy paws on my head and killed me right in front of the one true God like I was nothing. Get him the fuck out here. I surprise myself when a choked laugh comes out of me. Garrett's expression slips for a moment as he watches me. For some reason that sets me off even more, and I laugh harder. What? Garrett demands. You finding something funny? Yeah, I guess I am, I admit, wiping at the tears on my face. He takes a threatening step forward. Care to share with the rest of the class? I highly doubt you're going to find it as funny as I do. Try me. The rational part of me knows that I should fear this man. Garrett would be dangerous on his own, but with the gifts Malcoleth has given him, he's even more so. In my current state, he could snap me in half without breaking a sweat. After all the months of pain and suffering, both physically and mentally? I just don't. What's he going to do? Put an end to all that fun? Sure, why not, I say. It's just that you come all this way, come back from the dead for God's sake, to get revenge on someone that doesn't exist anymore. Garrett pauses. What the hell are you talking about? You want the wolf? Well, I'm sorry to inform you of this. The wolf is gone. Your master saw to that. Burned it away without leaving behind a single trace. You came all this way for nothing. You're lying. No, I'm not. Tonight is the full moon, right? That's why you're doing this now, because you know the change only happens during the full moon. So, where's the werewolf, huh? Why am I still human? I see a flicker of doubt on Garrett's face. You're suppressing the transformation. I laugh again. Your boss really didn't tell you anything about how this works, did it? I couldn't control jack shit when it came to the change. If the wolf was still inside of me, we wouldn't be having this delightful conversation right now. Garrett's expression turns hard. Well, we're just gonna have to fucking find out for sure, aren't we? He comes at me. I'm ready for it, though. In fact, I've been hoping for it. He has all the advantages. My only hope is to outthink him. The best way to do that is to blind him with his own anger. I step to one side and catch him by the coat, using his own momentum to shove him into the wall underneath the breaker boxes. It's not enough to hurt him, barely enough to stun him, but it buys me enough time that I'm able to run to the stairs and head up towards the ground level. I have to get outside, give myself more space to work with. He's going to have a much easier time killing me if we stay inside the confined apartment building. I'm halfway up the steps when a sharp pain digs into my chest. I grit my teeth and keep going. I don't know how much of this my body can take, but I'm about to find out. I can hear Garrett coming after me. Reaching the top of the stairs, I ram into the front door and hurry out into the night. I don't even make it down the steps before he grabs me by the back of the neck and hurls me into the side of the building. I strike the bricks hard enough that most of the air is forced out of my lungs. Garrett doesn't seem to notice the pouring rain as he wraps the fingers of his right hand around my face. He lifts me completely off my feet before driving me down into the muddy, half-frozen ground. I feel something crack in my shoulder. Before my mind can register the pain, he's lifting me up again. Instead of smashing me back into the ground, however, he turns and hurls me through a nearby window. I go flying into one of the first-floor apartments and can't manage to get a hand up in time before the side of my head connects with an end table. Lights burst in front of my eyes, and as I collapse onto the wooden floorboards, I feel the warmth of blood start to run out of a gash in my forehead. Everything seems so far away. I hear someone scream. The voice is distant and muffled. Garrett is climbing through the window after me, and although I know it's only a short distance from where I'm crumpled up, it's like we're miles apart. There's another scream. With a glance down at me, Garrett steps out of view. Screaming suddenly stops. That's better, he says. Now, where were we? Ah, right. He kicks me hard in the side. He's been on the attack for less than 5 minutes, and I'm already beaten. This isn't going to stop, he tells me. I'm going to keep breaking bones and puncturing organs till you give me what I want. There's a second kick, and then a third. My mind is clearer now than it was a few moments ago. That's not a good thing. Each hit hurts more, and I'm more conscious of the punishment I'm taking. Come on, damn it, Garrett growls. Give me the fucking wolf. The point of his boot clips my forehead. It widens the open wound, and the blood is flowing faster. It covers my face in a crimson mask. There's a long moment of silence. I lay on the floor wheezing. I want to get up and make this harder on him. Make him earn it. My limbs won't cooperate. It's really not in there anymore, is it? Garrett finally asks in a voice barely above a whisper. More silence. I don't know how much time passes before I feel the air shift slightly. The blood running down my forehead is blinding me, but I can feel Garrett standing over me. He's not saying a word. The time for talking must be over. That means that he's decided he really isn't going to get what he wants, and is now going to finish things. A part of me, same part that I considered swallowing the bottles of pills earlier, welcomes it. I hadn't been able to bring myself to take my own life, but now someone else was going to be taking it instead. He's basically doing what I couldn't. I snort, which quickly turns into a gasp for air. I should thank him for that. Why does it have to be him, though? Garrett is an extension of the thing that has taken everything from me. A little puppet whose strings are being pulled by Malkaleth. Hasn't that ancient asshole made me pay enough of a price already? Pain starts to fade as my anger begins to rise. No, not anger. This is different. This is something that I haven't felt for months, not since Broken Bend. This is rage. A rage that burns so hot that I can feel it pouring out of me. Garrett's foot connects with the side of my face, and my head strikes the nearby wall. Before he can continue his assault, I reach up and forcefully wipe the blood away from my eyes. As I do so, I see that the heat I'm feeling isn't just from my increased blood pressure. There's actually steam rising up from my skin. I stare at it in incomprehension. I vaguely notice that Garrett is doing the same. Despite my confusion, however, the rage continues to build inside of me. My skin starts to tingle and my muscles tighten. What in the hell is happening? As I raise one arm to get a better look, I see black hairs begin to grow from it. They're coarse, almost sharp, and they're tightly grouped together. The nails of my fingers extend outward until they're almost 3 inches long. Even before they're finished, bones of my fingers crack and shift, making them more into claws than fingers. It takes me a moment to realize that I'm laughing again. It's a different kind of laughter, though. I can't describe the elation that I'm feeling. I don't give a shit about the injuries or the pain. All that matters is that it's happening again. I'd been so sure that the wolf was dead and gone, but I had been wrong. The wolf had never left me. It had gravely hurt, yes, and it had needed time to recover. Now it was back, and I wasn't alone anymore. The bones of my body are breaking and adjusting themselves. This would be the perfect time for Garrett to attack. He can tear me apart while the transformation is taking place. Yet all that he's doing is standing still, looking at me with a look that I recognize all too well. It's hunger. He doesn't want me. He wants the wolf, and he's willing to wait to get it. The transformation is complete. My body has been reshaped. Not enough, though. The transformation was over much quicker than it should have been. Something is wrong. I've only partially become the wolf. I can feel sharp fangs in my mouth, but my face hasn't reshaped into the wolf's snout and jaws. While there is fur covering me, it's growing out of my own flesh, not the animal skin that's supposed to replace my own. I also can't sense the wolf inside of me. Instead of its wild and yet comforting presence, there's nothing. I'm still alone. Maybe it isn't strong enough to come out yet. Or maybe it really is gone. This change is just some remnant of its power that still exists inside of me. At this exact moment, though, it doesn't matter. This is enough. It's more than enough. I slowly get to my feet and bare my teeth at Garrett. He does the same and comes forward, but I leap directly at him and brutally slam him into the floor. It's easy. Not as easy as it is during a full transformation. It still doesn't take much effort. I don't even put my full strength into it. Heat flares all throughout my body. I gasp and back away from Garrett. It feels like everything is on fire. I haven't felt like this since I was being incinerated in Broken Bend. I clench my teeth, steam once again rising from my skin. The punishment that I had taken from Malcoleth hadn't stopped when the flames had ceased burning. It was still inside of me somehow. It takes me a moment to realize that this must have been locked away with the wolf. When it had emerged, even just partially, the fire that had consumed the wolf did as well. The bastard hasn't just taken everything from me. It has scarred me in such a way that it will keep taking from me. The rage continues to build in me. As it does so, it overtakes the burning. The pain is still there, but I don't care. All that I want to do is hurt Malcoleth the way that it has hurt me. Since I can't do that at this exact moment, hurting Garrett will just have to do. He's back on his feet now, and if my attack hurt him, he's not showing any signs of it. As we slowly circle each other, I recall our first fight in Broken Bend. He was stronger and faster than I had expected, although in my full transformation, I had been his superior when it came to both strength and speed. He was more skilled than I was, though, and his combat training had allowed him to make it a much closer match than it otherwise would have been. I don't have the same physical advantages that I had then. We're on a more level playing field, and if I'm not careful, he's going to take me apart piece by piece. I need to be smart about this. Before I can decide what to do, Garrett surprises me as he ducks down and goes for my legs. I manage to avoid his grasp. It's a feint, however, and he continues by adjusting his movement to drive his shoulder into my stomach. As we both collide with the wall, he straightens and grabs my wrists, preventing me from lashing out at his back with my claws. I'm not the only one that learned a few lessons during our last encounter. I snarl at him as a grin spreads across his face. That grin quickly turns to agony as he releases me and hurries back a few steps. He looks down at his hands with a look of incomprehension. My heightened senses pick up the scent of burning flesh. More steam is pouring out of me, and I can feel the buildup of heat in my body. The pain rises along with it. Every nerve feels like it's on fire. It doesn't matter. Tell myself, ignore the pain. Use whatever this is to finish the fight, and do it before the burning consumes you. I lunge forward and swing one hand towards Garrett's face. He puts his hands up in an attempt to protect himself. My claws are so hot that they pass right through skin, muscle, and bone with little effort. They rend the fingers from his hands and continue into the side of his face, before tearing half of his jaw from his head. The air around me is boiling. My view is wavy. I'm looking at the world through heat rising off of pavement in the summer. It doesn't matter. Keep pushing. Garrett is attempting to scream as he backs out of the apartment and into the hallway. With his jaw hanging off, noise is distorted and wet. It cuts off completely as I clamp my teeth down on his throat. Twisting my head to one side, I rip it out and spit the gore onto the hallway floor. I vaguely notice that it's burned and charred. This would be enough to kill a normal man. Garrett is far from normal. He's already come back from being torn apart. I need to make sure that doesn't happen again. I allow my rage to take over completely. Everything goes red with blood and flames. I don't know how long I'm in this primal state. When I once again find my rational mind in control, there's nothing left of Garrett except stains and ash. With the man gone, the anger inside of me is rapidly dissipating. The heat is fading as well. By the time the transformation is reversed and I'm back to my human form, I'm covered in sweat, but back to my usual temperature. That had been close. Far too close. Towards the end, I'd felt my skin bubbling and the air leaving my lungs. A minute longer, and I would have been burned alive from the inside. I look up as I hear sirens in the distance. I need to hurry. Get back up to my apartment throw a few things into a bag, and leave before the police arrive. The question is where I go from here. I need to go somewhere where I can work my way through this, figure things out, somewhere safe and private. The sirens are growing louder. I'll have to worry about that later. Right now, I just need to run.